The call came through at 3:47 a.m., shattering the silence of Lucien Drakos' study with a jarring electronic trill that made even centuries-old reflexes twitch. He stared at the unfamiliar number glowing on the screen of his phone, white brows drawing together in suspicion. No one called the Vampire King uninvited. No one possessed this number who did not already know better than to use it at such an hour unless the realm itself burned. His pale fingers, elegant and deadly, hovered over the device for a heartbeat, before ancient curiosity, that persistent vice that had sustained him through 400 years of existence, compelled him to answer. "You have reached someone you should not have," he said, his accent a blend of old-world aristocracy and modern precision. The voice that responded was human, female, trembling with such raw terror that it peeked through the carefully constructed walls he had built around anything resembling compassion. "Please," she whispered, the word breaking on a sob. "Please, I don't know who you are, but I can't call the police. He'll kill me if I call the police. I pressed random numbers, and I'm hiding in my bathroom, and I can hear him breaking things, and I don't want to die. Please, please, someone help me." Lucien stood abruptly, the leather-bound book he had been reading falling forgotten to the Persian rug beneath his feet. 4 centuries of rigid control, of carefully maintained distance from human affairs, should have made him end the call, should have made him dismiss this as beneath his concern. Instead, he found himself speaking, his voice dropping to that particular tone of absolute authority that had commanded armies and silenced councils. "Where are you?" "I don't—" Her breath hitched. A crash echoed through the phone, followed by a male voice shouting obscenities. "I don't know who you are. My name is not important. Your location is. Tell me now." Each word was a command, brooking no argument. She gave him an address in a voice that shook so badly he had to ask her to repeat it. Apartment complex on the east side of the city, not 15 miles from the converted cathedral that served as his primary residence. Through the phone, he heard heavy footsteps, heard her breathing go sharp and shallow with panic. "Stay on the line," Lucien commanded, already moving through his study with the preternatural speed that made him appear as little more than a white blur. He descended the spiral staircase, each step silent despite his velocity. "Do not hang up. Do you understand me?" "Okay," she breathed. "Okay, I won't." "What is your name?" "Jade. Jade Vaughn." "Jade," he repeated, committing it to memory with the perfect recall of his kind. "I'm coming to you now. How sturdy is your bathroom door?" "Not very. It's just a regular door with a button lock." He heard another crash, closer this time, heard Jade's sharp intake of breath. "Jennifer," the male voice was slurred, venomous, "get out here right fucking now." "That's not my name," Jade whispered into the phone, as if this detail mattered in the scope of her terror. "He can't even remember my name." Lucien was in his garage now, sliding behind the wheel of the black Mercedes he kept for occasions requiring speed rather than subtlety. The engine roared to life, responding to his touch like a living thing. "Listen to me very carefully," he said, putting the phone on speaker as he reversed into the empty street. "You are going to survive this night. Do you believe me?" "I don't even know you." "That's irrelevant. I have made a decision, and my decisions are not subject to failure." He took a corner at a speed that would have been reckless for a human driver, but his reflexes were beyond human limitation. "Tell me about this man." "Who is he?" "My boyfriend. Ex-boyfriend." She was crying now, trying to muffle the sound. "I broke up with him 3 days ago and he won't accept it. He keeps showing up, and tonight he was waiting in the parking lot when I got home from work. He followed me inside and I thought I could handle it, but he's been drinking and he's so angry." The speedometer climbed as Lucien navigated through the sparse late-night traffic. Streetlights blurred past, illuminating his reflection in brief flashes, white hair pulled back in a neat queue, pale skin that had not seen sunlight in centuries, eyes that gleamed red when he forgot to suppress his nature. Right now, he was not bothering to suppress anything. "What does he want?" Lucien asked, though he knew. He had seen enough of human nature, both as human and vampire, to understand the particular violence of possessive men. "Me. He wants me back. He says—" She cut off as something slammed against the bathroom door. Her scream was muffled, as if she had clapped a hand over her mouth. "Jade!" His voice cut through her panic like a blade. "Breathe. He cannot have you. Do you understand? You are under my protection now, whether you comprehend what that means or not. The door won't hold much longer. It does not need to." Lucien checked the GPS display on his dashboard. 8 miles remaining. He pressed the accelerator harder, the Mercedes responding with a surge of power. "I will be there in 4 minutes. Can you barricade yourself?" "I'm in the bathroom. There's nothing heavy enough to—" Another impact shook the door. "Oh, God. Stay calm. Panic will not serve you." He wove between 2 slower vehicles, earning an angry horn blast that he ignored entirely. "Tell me about yourself, Jade Vaughn. Keep your mind focused on something other than the door." "What?" The question came out half laughing, edged with hysteria. "You want my life story while I'm about to die?" "You are not going to die. I told you my decisions do not fail. Now talk to me." She drew a shuddering breath. "I'm 23. I work at a coffee shop downtown. I like mystery novels, and I have a cat named Agatha Christie, and this is insane. This is completely insane." "What is insane?" He took another turn, the tires gripping the asphalt with precision. "I called a wrong number and you're actually coming. You're a stranger, and you're driving across the city in the middle of the night for someone you don't even know." "Yes," Lucien said simply, because there was no point in denying it, and no point in examining too closely why he was doing this. He had stopped questioning his own impulses sometime around his 2nd century of existence. The door crashed open on her end. Jade screamed, a sound of pure terror that made something ancient and violent wake in Lucien's chest. He heard the boyfriend's voice, triumphant and vicious. "Found you, you stupid bitch. Thought you could hide from me?" "I am 30 seconds away," Lucien said into the phone, knowing she might not hear him over her own fear. "Hold on, Jade." He abandoned any pretense of traffic laws for the final stretch, the Mercedes screaming through a red light and into the apartment complex parking lot with a squeal of brakes. The building was a dingy 3-story structure, the kind of place where neighbors learned not to call the police when they heard fighting. Lucien was out of the car before the engine finished its dying growl, moving with inhuman speed toward the entrance. The directory listed Jade Vaughn in apartment 2C. He did not bother with the elevator, taking the stairs in 3 bounds that carried him upward faster than any human could track. The door to 2C hung partially open, damaged hinges, testament to forced entry. Inside he could hear struggling, Jade screaming, the boyfriend's voice raised in fury. Lucien walked through the door, and the scene crystallized before him with perfect clarity. The apartment was small, modestly furnished, decorated with the careful touches of someone who tried to make a home from limited means. Bookshelves lined one wall. A gray cat watched from atop the refrigerator with wide, frightened eyes. The bathroom door had been kicked in. In the narrow hallway beyond, a large man had Jade pressed against the wall, one hand around her throat, the other drawn back in a fist. She was small, dark-haired, dressed in coffee-stained work clothes. Her hazel eyes were wide with terror, her fingers clawing uselessly at the hand cutting off her air. The boyfriend was perhaps 30, muscular in the way of men who used their size to intimidate. His face was flushed with alcohol and rage. He had not yet noticed Lucien's entrance, too focused on his victim. "Excuse me," Lucien said, his voice carrying through the apartment with preternatural clarity. The boyfriend's head snapped around, confusion replacing rage for a moment. "Who the fuck are you?" "Remove your hand from her throat." It was not a request. The command carried 400 years of absolute authority, the weight of a king who had ruled over beings far more dangerous than this pathetic human specimen. The boyfriend, too drunk and too angry to recognize mortal danger, laughed. "Get the fuck out before I deal with you too, pretty boy." Lucien moved. One moment he stood in the doorway, the next he had crossed the space between them, a distance of perhaps 12 feet in less than a second. His hand closed around the boyfriend's wrist with crushing force, and he pulled the man away from Jade with enough power to send him stumbling backward into the opposite wall. Jade collapsed, gasping, one hand at her throat. The boyfriend recovered, shock giving way to fury. "You're dead, motherfucker," he charged, swinging a wild haymaker that might have felled a normal man. Lucien caught his fist effortlessly, his pale fingers wrapping around the larger man's hand like a vice. He squeezed, not enough to break bones, but enough to make his point. The boyfriend cried out, trying to pull away, finding himself held immobile by a grip that might as well have been iron. Leish. Listen very carefully, Lucien said, his voice dropping to a whisper that somehow filled the small hallway with menace. You are going to leave this place. You are going to leave this city. And you are never going to contact Jade Vaughn again. Not a call, not a text, not even a thought in her direction. Do you understand me? Fuck you! The boyfriend spat in his face. Lucien's eyes flared red, the crimson glow of his true nature blazing in the dim hallway light. He let his fangs extend, just slightly, just enough for the boyfriend to see them when Lucien smiled a terrible expression that held no humor, only the promise of violence. I was being polite, Lucien said softly, offering you a choice, but if you prefer, I can simply ensure you never threaten anyone ever again. Your decision. Make it quickly. The boyfriend had gone white, all bravado draining as he stared into Lucien's inhuman eyes, finally recognizing that he faced something beyond his understanding, something that could end him without effort or remorse. What are you? He whispered. Your worst nightmare if you do not comply with my instructions immediately. Jade watched from where she had crumpled against the wall, her hand still at her bruised throat, eyes wide with shock and confusion as she processed the impossible scene before her. The boyfriend nodded frantically, all fight gone. Okay, I'll go. I'll leave town. Just let me go. Lucien released him with a small push that sent the man stumbling toward the apartment's exit. If I discover you have broken your word, I will find you. There is nowhere on this earth you could hide from me. Remember that when you think about making contact with her. The boyfriend ran, his footsteps thundering down the hallway, down the stairs, fading into the night. The slam of the building's exterior door echoed up through the stairwell. Silence fell over the apartment, broken only by Jade's ragged breathing and the soft, concerned meow of her cat. Lucien turned to face her, his eyes already fading back to their normal dark blue, his fangs retracting. He had revealed himself, broken the fundamental law that governed interaction between his kind and humans. For reasons he could not fully explain, he found he did not care. Jade stared at him, tears streaking her face, confusion and fear, and something else warring in her expression. What are you? She asked, echoing her ex-boyfriend's question, but with entirely different inflection, not terror, but wonder. That is a complicated question, with an answer you may not be prepared to hear. Lucien kept his distance, aware that he had just traumatized her perhaps as much as he had saved her. Are you injured, beyond your throat? She touched her neck gingerly, then shook her head. I don't think so. He didn't. You got here before he could. She trailed off, seeming to realize how close she had come to something far worse than strangulation. May I? Lucien gestured toward her throat, moving slowly, carefully, as one might approach a frightened animal. Jade nodded, and he crossed to her, kneeling to bring himself to her eye level. Up close, he could see she was lovely in an understated way, soft features, intelligent eyes, a mouth made for smiling even if it currently trembled with shock. His fingers ghosted over her throat, not quite touching, assessing the damage. Bruising had already started to mottle her skin, angry purple fingerprints standing out starkly. You will have bruises for several days, he said quietly, but nothing permanent, nothing broken. You moved so fast, Jade whispered, and your eyes, your teeth, that's not, people can't do that. No, Lucien agreed. People cannot. Are you going to kill me? The question came out matter of fact, as if she had moved beyond fear into a strange sort of acceptance. If I wanted you dead, you would be dead. I did not drive across the city at considerable risk to my vehicle's suspension in order to murder you myself. He realized that might not be as reassuring as he intended, and tried again. You called for help. I provided it. That is the extent of my interest in causing you harm. Jade laughed, the sound edged with hysteria. I called a random number and got... What? What are you? Lucien considered her, considered all the reasons he should compel her to forget this night, should erase himself from her memory and return to his carefully ordered existence. He had lived for centuries by maintaining absolute discretion, by never allowing humans to truly see him. But something about Jade Vaughn, her courage in the face of terror, the way she had held herself together through the attack, the fact that even now she asked questions rather than simply screaming, made him answer honestly. "I am vampire," he said simply. "And before you ask the predictable questions, yes, I drink blood. No, I cannot walk in sunlight. Yes, I am quite old. No, I do not typically involve myself in human affairs. Tonight was an aberration." She absorbed this, her gaze never leaving his face. "How old?" 407 years, give or take a decade. I stopped counting precisely sometime in my 3rd century. "And you're a king? You said something on the phone about your decisions not failing." He inclined his head. "I rule the vampires of this region, a territory spanning roughly 500 miles in any direction from where we currently sit. It is a tedious position involving far more politics than one might imagine." Jade pushed herself up from the floor with visible effort, moving to sit on her couch. Her cat, Agatha Christie, immediately jumped down from the refrigerator to curl in her lap, purring loudly. She stroked the gray fur with shaking hands. "Why did you come? You said you don't involve yourself with humans." It was the question Lucien had been asking himself since he answered the phone. "I do not know," he admitted. "You asked for help. I found myself compelled to provide it." "That's not much of an answer." "No," he agreed, "it is not. I'm 4 centuries old and have long since accepted that I do not always understand my own motivations." They looked at each other across the small apartment, vampire and human, predator and prey, 2 beings who should never have intersected but for a wrong number at 3 in the morning. "Thank you," Jade said finally, her voice soft but steady. "I know that's inadequate, but thank you. He would have killed me." "I know he would have." "You're welcome." Lucien found himself oddly reluctant to leave, which was absurd. He had fulfilled his self-imposed obligation. There was no reason to linger. "You should see a doctor about your throat, and file a police report regardless of what he threatened. Will he really leave town, or will you have to—" She trailed off, but her meaning was clear. "He will leave. Humans are quite predictable when faced with something they cannot rationalize or overcome. He will convince himself tonight was a drug-induced hallucination and run far from the memory." Lucien moved toward the door, then paused. "If he does not, if he bothers you again in any way, you have my number now. Use it. I don't even know your name, your real name. Lucien Drakos. That's very vampiric." Despite himself, despite the strange circumstances and the violation of every rule he had lived by, Lucien felt his mouth curve into a genuine smile. "My human name was considerably more mundane. I changed it in my 2nd century when I grew tired of updating documents and decided to simply lean into the stereotype." Jade actually laughed, startled into it. "I like it. Very dramatic." "I am nothing if not dramatic. It comes with the territory of extreme age and political power." He opened her damaged door, examining the broken frame. "You cannot stay here tonight. This lock is compromised." "I don't have anywhere else to go." Fresh anxiety crept into her voice. "And I can't afford a hotel. I'm barely making rent as it is." Lucien made a decision that his advisor would undoubtedly describe as catastrophically foolish. "Then you will come with me. I have more than adequate space, and you will be completely safe." "You're a vampire asking me to come back to your place. Do you hear how that sounds?" "I hear it perfectly. I'm also the vampire who just saved your life, and am offering you protection for the remainder of the night. If I wanted to harm you, Jade, we would not be having this conversation." He kept his tone matter-of-fact, without offense. "The choice is yours. Stay here with a broken door, or accept my offer of sanctuary. Decide quickly, as sunrise comes in a few hours, and I must be indoors well before then." Jade looked around her apartment, the destroyed bathroom door, the broken front lock, the overturned furniture from Derek's rampage. Then she looked at Lucien, really looked at him, and he found himself hoping she would accept for reasons that had nothing to do with her safety and everything to do with the strange pull he felt toward this fragile human woman. "Okay," she said finally, "but Agatha comes with me. I would not dream of separating you from your companion, though I should warn you, I have minimal experience with cats. She's very self-sufficient." Jade stood, still cradling the cat, and moved to her bedroom. She emerged moments later with a backpack hastily stuffed with clothes and a cat carrier. Agatha Christie went into the carrier with a yowl of protest that suggested this was a familiar indignity. They made an unusual trio as they descended to Lucien's Mercedes, ancient vampire king, traumatized coffee shop employee, and indignant cat. Lucien opened the passenger door for Jade, with the same courtesy he would have shown any noble of his court, then secured the cat carrier in the back seat. The drive to his residence was quiet. Jade stared out the window, processing the impossible evening. Lucien drove with his usual precision, hyper-aware of her presence beside him. She smelled of coffee and fear, sweat, and something uniquely her, a scent that called to his vampire nature in ways he firmly suppressed. He had fed 2 nights prior, and his control was absolute, but he was still acutely conscious of the human heartbeat, the rush of blood through delicate veins. "How often do you need to drink blood?" Jade asked suddenly, apparently following some internal train of thought. "Every few days, though I can extend that to a week or more if necessary. It is not comfortable, but I am old enough to maintain control even when hungry." "Do you kill people?" "I have in the past. I do not anymore. There are resources available. Blood banks, willing donors within the vampire community, arrangements with certain hospitals. I have not killed to feed in over a century." She absorbed this. "That's good, I guess. I mean, it's still drinking blood, but at least you're not murdering people for it." "Your pragmatism is refreshing. Most humans react with significantly more hysteria to these revelations. I think I used up all my hysteria for the evening when Derek was choking me." Her voice went flat on the name, and Lucien felt a fresh surge of anger toward the man who had terrorized her. They arrived at the converted cathedral shortly thereafter. Lucien pulled into the underground garage, the heavy door rolling down behind them with a pneumatic hiss. Jade climbed out slowly, staring up at the vaulted ceiling with wide eyes. "You live in a church?" "Former church. It was deconsecrated in the 1950s, abandoned for decades, and I purchased it in the 1980s. I found the irony appealing, and the architecture is extraordinary." He retrieved her backpack and the cat carrier, gesturing toward the elevator. "The renovations took 3 years and far too much money, but the result is satisfactory." The elevator rose silently through 3 floors, opening into a foyer that managed to blend Gothic grandeur with modern comfort. Vaulted ceilings soared overhead, original stained glass windows covered with blackout shutters against the coming sunrise. Antique furniture mixed with contemporary pieces in a way that should have clashed but somehow worked perfectly. "This is insane," Jade breathed, turning in a slow circle. "This whole night is completely insane." "Yes," Lucien agreed. "It rather is." He set down her belongings. "You must be exhausted. I will show you to a guest room." He led her up a curved staircase to the 2nd floor, down a hallway lined with artwork spanning 5 centuries. The guest room he chose was one of his favorites, smaller than the master suite, but beautifully appointed, with a 4-poster bed and an ensuite bathroom. "There are clothes in the dresser that should fit adequately," he said. "I occasionally have guests, though none recently. The bathroom is stocked with necessities. You may sleep as long as you wish. I will be unavailable during daylight hours regardless." Jade set down Agatha's carrier and opened it. The cat emerged with dignity, immediately beginning to explore this new territory. "Where do you sleep? Do you actually use a coffin?" "I have a bedroom in the basement levels, reinforced against any possibility of sunlight. And no, I use a bed like a civilized being. The coffin tradition is largely myth. But the sunlight thing is real. Catastrophically real. Exposure to direct sunlight would kill me in minutes. It is not a pleasant death from what I understand, though I have never been foolish enough to test it personally." Jade sat on the edge of the bed, exhaustion finally catching up with her. "I should be more scared of you. I should be terrified. Instead, I just feel safe. That's weird, right?" Lucien moved to lean against the door frame, maintaining respectful distance. "Perhaps, or perhaps your instincts recognize that I mean you no harm. I've been called many things over the centuries. Dangerous, ruthless, cold. But I have never harmed those under my protection." "And I'm under your protection now?" "Yes." The word came out more intense than he intended, carrying weight he did not fully understand. "You called for help and I answered. That creates a bond, however unexpected. I do not abandon those who rely on me." Her hazel eyes studied him with uncomfortable perception. "You're different than I expected. From the stories, I mean, the vampire stories. I am very old and very dangerous, and I have done terrible things in my long existence. Do not romanticize what I am simply because I chose to help you tonight. I'm not romanticizing anything. I'm just saying, thank you, and acknowledging that you're not what I expected. She yawned, covering her mouth with her hand. Sorry, I'm completely exhausted. Then sleep. We can discuss the practicalities of your situation tomorrow evening. Lucien straightened, preparing to leave. Lucien? Jade's voice stopped him at the threshold. Yes? Why did you really answer the phone? The truth. He considered lying, considered deflecting. Instead, he found himself answering with an honesty that surprised even him. Because you sounded brave even while you were terrified, and I found I could not bear the thought of that courage being extinguished. It has been a very long time since anything moved me to action that was not calculated political necessity. You were unexpected. Before she could respond, he left, closing the door softly behind him. He descended to his own chambers, aware that sunrise approached and his body would soon demand rest, whether he willed it or not. But sleep, when it came, brought dreams of hazel eyes and a voice whispering, "Please," into the darkness. When Lucien woke the following evening, his first conscious thought was of the human woman sleeping somewhere above him. His second was that he had made a potentially catastrophic error in judgment by bringing her to his home. His third was that he did not particularly care. He showered and dressed with his usual precision, dark slacks, a white shirt, no tie. The informality would have scandalized his court a century ago, but he had long since ceased caring about such trivial matters. He made his way upstairs as full night settled over the city, finding the cathedral quiet save for the distant sound of movement from the kitchen. Jade stood at his coffee maker, dressed in clothes from the guest room dresser, soft gray pants and a sweater that hung slightly loose on her smaller frame. Her dark hair was damp from a shower, and the bruising on her throat had darkened to a vivid purple. She looked up as he entered, offering a tentative smile. I hope you don't mind. I found the coffee, and I fed Agatha some of the canned food I brought. The cat in question lounged on the marble counter, grooming herself with feline nonchalance. Make yourself comfortable. This is your sanctuary for as long as you require it. Lucien moved to the refrigerator, retrieving a glass bottle filled with dark red liquid. He was conscious of Jade watching as he poured it into a crystal glass. Is that blood? Yes, I prefer it warmed slightly, but cold is acceptable. He met her eyes over the rim of the glass. Does it disturb you? Honestly, it should. But after everything else, it just seems like another weird detail. She took her coffee to the kitchen table, settling into one of the high-backed chairs. I called my landlord this morning. He's sending someone to fix my door, but it won't be done until tomorrow. And I called in sick to work, which I never do, but I couldn't exactly show up looking like this. She gestured to her throat. Practical considerations. Lucien joined her at the table, noting the way morning light diffused through heavy curtains and blackout shades never quite reached the interior of his home. Have you given thought to the larger situation? This Derek will leave, but your apartment is compromised. He had a key, I assume? Yeah, I meant to get the locks changed, but I didn't have the money. Jade wrapped her hands around her coffee mug. I know I can't hide here forever, even though this place is incredible. I have a life, a job, bills to pay. You can remain here as long as necessary. However, I understand the need for independence. He considered the problem with the same strategic mind he applied to vampire politics. I have resources. I could arrange for you to relocate to a more secure apartment, one with proper locks and possibly even a doorman. I can't afford that, and I can't accept charity. It would not be charity. Consider it an investment in my own peace of mind. I've involved myself in your situation, which means I have a vested interest in ensuring your continued safety. Jade studied him over her coffee. Why? Really? Truly, why? You said I was unexpected, but that's not a reason to upend your entire life for a stranger. Lucien was silent for a long moment, examining his own motivations with the brutal honesty he typically reserved for council meetings. I have lived for over 4 centuries, he said finally. I have known thousands of humans in that time. Most blur together brief, forgettable lives that pass in the blink of an eye from my perspective. But every few decades, I encounter someone who reminds me what it was like to be human myself. Someone whose courage or kindness or sheer stubborn will to survive cuts through the apathy that comes with immortality. He met her eyes, holding her gaze. You called a wrong number in your moment of greatest terror, and you did it with a dignity that most would have lost. You asked for help without begging, maintained your composure in an impossible situation, and when faced with the revelation of vampires, you responded with pragmatism rather than hysteria. You are remarkable, Jade Vaughn, and I find I am not ready to let the world extinguish that. Jade's cheeks flushed, color rising beneath the bruising. That's possibly the most intense thing anyone has ever said to me. I am an intense individual. It comes with being a 400-year-old vampire king. She laughed, some of the tension bleeding from her shoulders. I guess it would. Okay. Here's what I'm thinking. I can't take a handout, but maybe we can work out an arrangement. You clearly live in this massive place alone. What if I stayed here temporarily, and in exchange I could, I don't know, cook? Clean? I assume vampire kings don't do their own housework. I have a cleaning service that comes weekly, and I do not eat human food. Lucien paused. However, I do have need of someone to manage certain daytime affairs. My business interests require occasional in-person attention. During hours I cannot provide. If you were willing to serve as a daytime representative, that would be worth compensation. What kind of business interests? Real estate primarily, several investment portfolios, a few holdings in technology and pharmaceuticals. When one lives for centuries, one accumulates wealth and the necessity of managing it. Jade absorbed this. So you're rich, like really rich. Obscenely so by most standards, though much of it is tied up in assets rather than liquid capital. He waved a hand dismissively. The point is, I could use someone I trust to handle matters during daylight, someone intelligent and capable. You would require training, naturally, but I suspect you would learn quickly. You're offering me a job? I'm offering you a mutually beneficial arrangement. You need safety and income. I need daytime assistance and find your company. He searched for the right word. Agreeable. Agreeable, Jade repeated, a smile playing at her lips. Such high praise. I am not accustomed to complimenting people. I spent several centuries in an environment where showing fondness was often weaponized. Old habits persist. Her expression softened. What was it like? Becoming a vampire, I mean. If that's not too personal a question. Lucien leaned back in his chair, the memories rising unbidden. I was dying of plague in 1617. My entire village had been decimated, my family gone, and I lay in a church awaiting death with a strange sort of relief. Then she came an ancient vampire named Seraphina, drawn by the scent of mass death. She offered me a choice, die as a human, or live forever as something else. And you chose to live. I was 26 years old and terrified of oblivion. Of course I chose to live. I did not understand what I was choosing, not really. The transformation is agonizing. 3 days of feeling your entire body die and remake itself. And then you wake to a world that is simultaneously more vivid and more alien than anything you knew as human. Do you regret it? No one had asked him that in centuries. Sometimes, immortality sounds glorious in theory, but in practice, it means watching everyone you care for age and die while you remain unchanged. It means becoming something other, something that can never truly connect with the humanity you once possessed. But it also means witnessing wonders beyond imagination, accumulating knowledge and power, shaping events in ways no human could. The answer is complicated. Jade nodded slowly. I think I understand, or at least I'm trying to. They talked for hours. A conversation that ranged from the mundane to the profound. Jade told him about growing up in foster care, about putting herself through community college while working multiple jobs, about her love of mystery novels and her terrible habit of adopting plants she inevitably killed. Lucien found himself sharing stories from his long existence, carefully edited to avoid the darker aspects, but genuine nonetheless. It was near midnight when Jade finally yawned, stretching like the cat that dozed on the nearby sofa. I should probably sleep. My schedule is completely backwards now. Then adjust it. If you are to work for me, you will need to keep evening hours regardless. Lucien stood, suddenly reluctant to end their conversation. Before you retire, there is something you should know. I have enemies, as any ruler does. By associating with me, by staying in my home, you make yourself a potential target. What kind of enemies? Other vampires, primarily. There are those who resent my rule, who would like nothing better than to see me weakened or destroyed. Humans are vulnerable. If they knew you were under my protection, they might seek to use you against me. Jade paled slightly but lifted her chin. So what do we do about it? We ensure you are protected at all times. You do not leave this building without an escort. You carry a phone with direct access to my people, and you learn to defend yourself, both against humans and supernatural threats. You're going to teach me to fight vampires? I'm going to ensure you are not defenseless. There are weapons that work against my kind, wooden stakes through the heart, decapitation, fire. None are pleasant, but all are effective. You should know how to wield them. This is insane, Jade said again, but there was a gleam of determination in her eyes. But okay, teach me. If I'm going to be involved in your world, I should know how to survive it. The following weeks fell into a pattern that became increasingly comfortable. Jade slept during the day and woke in the evening, joining Lucien in his study where he taught her the intricacies of his business holdings. She proved to be a quick study, grasping complex financial concepts with an ease that impressed him. More than that, she asked insightful questions, challenged his assumptions, and brought a fresh perspective to matters he had been handling the same way for decades. At night, he trained her in combat. They cleared space in one of the cathedral's larger rooms, and Lucien taught her to fight with a patience he had not known he possessed. She was small and human fragile, but she learned quickly, channeling her fear into focus. Again, he said, circling her with predatory grace, you are faster than you think. Use that. Jade lunged, the wooden practice stake aimed at his chest. Lucien sidestepped easily, but he noted her form had improved. Better. But a vampire will not move like a human. We are faster, stronger. You must anticipate. How am I supposed to anticipate superhuman speed? She demanded, breathing hard. By learning to read the smallest signals, we may be fast, but we still telegraph our intentions. Watch the eyes, the shoulders, the subtle shift of weight. He moved suddenly, appearing behind her in a blur. What did you see? Nothing. You just vanished. No, I shifted my weight to my right foot a fraction of a second before I moved. You can see it if you know what to look for. Again. They trained until Jade was exhausted, then retired to the study where Lucien would read while she worked on the various tasks he had assigned. It was domestic in a way he had not experienced in centuries, and he found himself looking forward to each evening, to the sound of her voice and her laughter, to the way she had made his ancient home feel alive. Agatha Christie, for her part, had claimed Lucien as her own. The cat followed him through the cathedral, demanded attention with imperious meows, and had taken to sleeping on his bed during the day. He found he did not mind. A month after Jade had arrived, Lucien's advisor appeared at the cathedral. Nikolai was an ancient vampire, turned during the time of the Byzantine Empire, and he had served as counselor to the vampire kings of this region for 6 centuries. He was also deeply traditional and perpetually exasperated by Lucien's more modern attitudes. You're keeping a human, Nikolai said without preamble, his accent thick with antiquity, in your home, as if she were a pet. Jade is not a pet, she's my employee and under my protection. Lucien did not look up from the contract he was reviewing. The court is talking. They say you have grown soft, that you are compromised by attachment to a mortal woman. Now Lucien did look up, his eyes cold. Let them talk. I did not become king by concerning myself with gossip. This is more than gossip, Lucien. Victor has been making inquiries. He wants to know who she is, why she matters to you. Victor. The name brought a curl of distaste to Lucien's lips. An old vampire, nearly as ancient as Lucien himself, who had opposed his rule from the beginning. Victor was dangerous, cunning, and utterly without scruples. Victor can inquire all he wishes. It changes nothing. He will use her against you if he can. Nikolai's expression was grave. You know this. Humans are leverage, and you have just handed him a weapon. Then Victor will learn that I do not respond well to threats against those under my protection. Lucien's voice dropped to a dangerous purr. Warn the court, Nikolai. Jade Vaughn is under my personal protection. Any who move against her move against me directly. I will tolerate no exceptions. Nikolai sighed. You care for this human. Yes. There is no point in denying it. I do. That is unexpected. You have been cold for so long, I thought you incapable of attachment. So did I. Lucien returned to his contract. Life, it seems, remains capable of surprising even those of us who have lived far too long. After Nikolai departed, Lucien found Jade in the library, curled up with Agatha and a mystery novel. She looked up as he entered, smiling in welcome, and he felt something in his chest constrict an ache he had not experienced in centuries. Everything okay? I heard voices. My advisor, warning me that I have made myself vulnerable by caring for you. He settled into the chair across from her. He is not wrong. Jade set down her book. Should I leave? I don't want to cause problems for you. No. The word came out sharper than he intended. You should not leave. I do not want you to leave. What I want is for you to understand that my world is dangerous, and by being part of it, you are in danger as well. I know. You've told me that. I'm choosing to stay anyway. She met his eyes steadily. I like it here, Lucien. I like the work you have me doing. I like learning about your world, and I like— She hesitated, color rising to her cheeks. I like you. Is that stupid? To care about a 400-year-old vampire? No more stupid than said vampire caring for a 23-year-old human coffee shop employee. Lucien leaned forward. But you should understand what you are saying. I am not human. Jade, I am not capable of giving you the things a human man could offer. I will never age, never change, never die. You will grow older while I remain the same, and eventually that gap will become insurmountable. That's a problem for future us to worry about. Right now, in this moment, I care about you and you care about me, and that seems worth exploring. Unless you disagree. Lucien crossed to her in 2 strides, vampire speed carrying him across the library faster than human eyes could track. He knelt before her chair, bringing them face to face. I have lived for 4 centuries, Jade. I have known emperors and artists, warriors and scholars. I have experienced nearly every pleasure and pain this world has to offer. And yet somehow, you have become the most important part of my existence in the span of a few weeks. It terrifies me. Good, Jade whispered. I'm terrified too. We can be terrified together. He kissed her then, a gentle press of lips that held centuries of loneliness and longing. She tasted of coffee and chapstick and hope, and when she kissed him back, her hands tangling in his white hair, Lucien felt something he had thought lost forever, the simple, pure joy of connection. They broke apart slowly, both breathing harder than strictly necessary. Well, Jade said, her voice shaky. That was inadequate, Lucien finished. I have been practicing kissing for 400 years, and somehow that was still inadequate. She laughed, bright and genuine. I thought it was pretty good, actually. Then you have had terrible previous partners. I will have to demonstrate my full capabilities later. He stood, offering her his hand. But for now, we should discuss the practical realities of this situation. If we are to pursue this connection, you need to understand everything about my world, the good and the very, very bad. Over the following hours, Lucien told her everything. The vampire court system, the blood laws that governed interaction between vampires and humans, the ancient feuds and modern politics that shaped his rule. He told her about the Daywalkers, rare vampires who had undergone a dangerous ritual to gain immunity to sunlight, and the hunters who stalked his kind. He explained the turning process, made clear that he would never turn her without explicit consent, that such a thing was forbidden under his own laws. Jade listened, asked questions, processed it all with the same pragmatic intelligence that had first drawn him to her. So basically, your world is just as complicated and messed up as the human world, just with more supernatural elements and a stronger dress code. That is a reductive but essentially accurate assessment, yes. And this Victor person, he's a real threat? Very real. He is old, powerful, and completely ruthless. He has wanted my territory for decades, but but he has never had sufficient support from the other regional rulers to challenge me directly. Instead, he undermines, plants seeds of doubt, looks for any weakness to exploit. And he thinks I'm a weakness. He thinks affection for a human makes me vulnerable. He's not entirely wrong. Lucien took her hands in his, pale fingers wrapping around her darker skin. I will not lie to you, Jade. Being with me puts you in danger. I can offer protection, but I cannot guarantee absolute safety. If you want to walk away, I will arrange for you to be relocated somewhere secure, somewhere Victor will never find you. Do you want me to walk away? No, I want you to stay more than I have wanted anything in longer than I can remember, but I will not trap you with my own desires. Jade squeezed his hands. Then I stay. We figure this out together. The attack came 2 weeks later, sudden and vicious. Jade had been out during the day, managing a property inspection for one of Lucien's real estate holdings. She had returned to the cathedral just after sunset, and they were reviewing her report when the alarms triggered a piercing shriek that echoed through the converted church. Lucien was on his feet instantly, every instinct screaming danger. Get to the safe room, now. What's happening? The perimeter has been breached. Go! He pushed her toward the hidden door behind his study bookshelf, but they were too slow. The window exploded inward. Impossible. It was reinforced steel and vampire-proof glass, and 3 vampires poured through the opening in a blur of inhuman speed. Lucien recognized one of them. Marcus, one of Victor's lieutenants. Hello, Lucien, Marcus said with a cold smile. Victor sends his regards, and a message no human is worth dying for. They attacked in coordinated precision, centuries of combat experience evident in every move. Lucien met them with controlled fury, moving faster than human eyes could track. He was older, stronger, but they had numbers and the element of surprise. Jade ran for the safe room, but one of the attackers broke away, moving to intercept her. Lucien felt his control snap, ancient power rising in a wave of rage. He caught the vampire by the throat and slammed him into the wall with enough force to crack stone, then ripped his head from his shoulders in a spray of blood. The other 2 attackers hesitated, clearly not expecting such savagery. Lucien used their moment of shock, moving on Marcus with single-minded purpose. They crashed through a table that had been crafted in the 1700s, rolled across the floor, trading blows that would have killed a human. You made a mistake coming here, Lucien snarled, his fangs fully extended, eyes blazing crimson. Did I? Marcus kicked him away, gaining distance. Or did I prove exactly what Victor knew, that you have become weak, distracted by human pussy? The crude insult barely registered. Lucien was beyond words, operating on pure predatory instinct. He feinted left, then struck right, his hand punching through Marcus's chest to grasp his heart. Marcus's eyes went wide with shock. Tell Victor, Lucien said softly, that if he ever comes near her again, I will spend the next century making him beg for the mercy of true death. He crushed the heart and let Marcus's body fall, already turning to the 3rd attacker. But that vampire had fled, vampire speed, carrying him back through the broken window and into the night. Silence fell over the destroyed study. Jade emerged from behind the overturned desk where she had taken cover, her face pale but her hands steady on the wooden stake she had grabbed from the training room. Are you hurt? Lucien was at her side instantly, hands running over her arms, her face checking for injuries. I'm fine. I'm okay. Her eyes took in the carnage, 2 dead vampires, broken furniture, blood spattering the expensive rugs. You tore his head off. Yes. Lucien did not apologize for his violence. They came for you. I will not allow that. Jade set down the stake with shaking hands. This is real. I mean, I knew it was real, but seeing it, that's different. I know. I'm sorry you had to witness that. He pulled her into his arms, relief flooding through him. But I'm not sorry I killed them. I would kill 1,000 more to keep you safe. That's terrifying and romantic at the same time. Welcome to loving a vampire. The words slipped out before he could stop them, and he froze, waiting for her reaction. Jade pulled back just enough to meet his eyes. Is that what this is? Love? I believe it might be. I have not felt this particular combination of terror and joy since I was human, but I recognize the symptoms. He touched her face gently. You need not return the sentiment. I understand the situation is complicated, and I love you too, Jade interrupted. I know it's crazy and fast and we barely know each other in the grand scheme of things, but I love you, even when you're terrifying and covered in vampire blood. Lucien kissed her then, heedless of the destruction around them, heedless of the very real threat that still existed. For that moment, there was only Jade, alive and safe in his arms, choosing him despite everything. When they finally broke apart, reality reasserted itself. The cathedral's security had been breached, 2 vampires lay dead in his study, and Victor had just declared open war. We need to leave, Lucien said, his tactical mind already running through options. This place is compromised and Victor will send more, many more. Where do we go? I have properties throughout the region, safe houses that even Nikolai does not know about. We will relocate to one of them while I deal with this threat permanently. They gathered essentials quickly, documents, weapons, Agatha Christie yowling her protest at being stuffed back into her carrier. Within 20 minutes, they were in Lucien's Mercedes, racing through the city toward the countryside beyond. How do we end this? Jade asked, one hand clutching the door handle as Lucien took a turn at speed. Victor isn't going to just give up. No, he will not. Lucien's jaw was set, his expression grim. Which means I must do something I have avoided for decades. I must call a formal challenge, a duel before the assembled court, winner takes all. What does that mean, winner takes all? It means Victor and I fight to true death. The survivor claims the territory, the title, and all the power that comes with it. It is old law, rarely invoked in modern times, but still binding. He could kill you. He could try. He will fail. There was no arrogance in the statement, only cold certainty. I am older, stronger, and I have far more to lose. That makes me more dangerous than Victor has ever been. They drove for 2 hours, finally turning onto a private road that wound through dense forest. The safe house was a modern structure built into a hillside, all steel and reinforced glass, designed to be defensible against both human and supernatural threats. Inside, Lucien made calls, first to Nikolai, informing him of the attack and his decision to invoke challenge law. Then, to the other regional vampire rulers, formally declaring his intent and inviting them to witness the duel. Jade listened from the living room, Agatha curled in her lap, processing the reality that the man she loved might die in a week's time. When Lucien finished his calls, he found her on the couch, staring out at the forest beyond the windows. He settled beside her, pulling her against his side. I am going to win, he said quietly. I have not survived 4 centuries by being easy to kill. What if you don't? What happens to me if Victor wins? That will not happen. But if it did, I have made arrangements. Nikolai has instructions to ensure you are taken somewhere safe, somewhere far from vampire politics. You would be protected, financially secure, free to live your life. I don't want that life if it doesn't include you. Lucien tilted her face up, forcing her to meet his eyes. Listen to me. You are 23 years old with decades of life ahead of you. If I fall, you will grieve, and then you will live. You will find love again, build a career, do all the things you deserve to do. Promise me. I'm not promising that. Jade. No, she pulled away, anger flashing in her eyes. You don't get to plan my future without you in it. You're going to win this duel because you're stronger and smarter and you have everything to fight for. And then we're going to figure out how to make this work long term, because I'm not giving up on us just because the situation is complicated. Despite the gravity of the situation, Lucien felt himself smile. You are remarkably stubborn for such a small human. I spent most of my childhood in foster care and put myself through college working 3 jobs. Stubborn is my default setting. She took his hand. Teach me everything you know about fighting vampires. If Victor comes for you, I want to be able to help. You cannot help in a formal duel. It is forbidden for anyone to interfere. The penalty is immediate death. Then teach me anyway. For after, when his supporters inevitably try to avenge him. So Lucien taught her, spending the week before the duel drilling her on vampire weaknesses, on combat strategy, on how to move and strike and survive. She would never be strong enough to overpower a vampire, but she learned to be fast, clever, to exploit openings and use weapons effectively. At night, They made love with a desperate intensity, as if trying to fit a lifetime of connection into borrowed days. Lucien mapped every inch of her body, committing the taste and feel of her to perfect vampire memory. Jade clung to him with matching desperation, whispering her love against his cool skin. "I will come back to you," he promised against her hair. "Nothing in this world or the next could keep me from you." The duel was held in a converted warehouse on neutral ground, witnessed by the assembled vampire court and the rulers of 3 neighboring territories. Jade stood with Nikolai in the gallery, her heart pounding as she watched Lucien and Victor face each other on the cleared floor below. Victor was impressive tall, muscular, with the white hair and pale skin common to elder vampires. His eyes gleamed with malicious anticipation as he circled Lucien, looking for openings. "You should have stayed distant, Drakos," Victor called out, his voice carrying through the warehouse. "Your attachment to that human has made you soft, predictable. And your arrogance has made you foolish," Lucien replied calmly. "Shall we begin, or do you wish to continue posturing?" Victor lunged, and the warehouse erupted into violence. They moved faster than Jade could properly track, 2 blurs of white and black colliding in bursts of savage force. The sound of their impacts echoed like gunshots, and when they broke apart, both were bloodied but still standing. "He is holding back," Nikolai murmured beside Jade. "Victor fights with desperation, but Lucien, he fights with purpose. What's the difference? One seeks victory. The other seeks to protect what he loves. The latter is far more dangerous." The fight raged for what felt like hours, but was likely less than 20 minutes. Victor landed brutal hits that would have killed a younger vampire, but Lucien absorbed the damage and kept coming, relentless and unstoppable. Gradually, inevitably, Victor began to slow, began to make mistakes. Lucien caught him mid-lunge, using Victor's own momentum to drive him to the ground. His hand closed around Victor's throat, crushing with inexorable pressure. "You threatened what is mine," Lucien said, his voice carrying through the sudden silence. "You attacked my home, endangered the woman I love, and thought you could win through violence and intimidation. You were wrong." Victor struggled, but Lucien's grip was unbreakable. With one savage motion, he tore Victor's head from his shoulders, ending the fight and the threat in a spray of blood. Silence held for a heartbeat. Then Nikolai stepped forward, his voice ringing with formal authority. "Victor is defeated. Lucien Drakos remains king of this territory. Let all here witness and accept this judgment." The assembled vampires bowed, acknowledgement and submission clear in the gesture. Jade ran to Lucien, heedless of protocol, throwing herself into his arms. He caught her, lifting her off her feet, burying his face in her hair. "I told you I would come back to you," he murmured. "Never scare me like that again." "I make no promises. My existence is somewhat violent by nature." She pulled back to look at him, taking in the blood and bruising that already showed signs of healing. "I love you, even when you're terrifying and covered in even more vampire blood. I love you too, even when you are stubborn and reckless and entirely too brave for a fragile human." They kissed there, in front of the assembled vampire court, and if anyone disapproved of their king claiming a human lover so publicly, they were wise enough to keep silent. The following months brought changes. Lucien had the cathedral fully restored and reinforced, turning it into a fortress that could withstand any assault. Jade officially became his daytime representative, a position that carried surprising weight in the vampire community. Those who did business with Lucien learned quickly that she spoke with his authority and possessed a mind sharp enough to match any negotiation. She also became something of a curiosity in vampire circles, the human who had captured the heart of a notoriously cold king. Some viewed her with suspicion, others with fascination, but all treated her with respect born of fear. Lucien had made it abundantly clear what happened to those who threatened her. Jade continued her training, becoming genuinely skilled at vampire combat despite her human limitations. Lucien took pride in her progress, in the way she faced down ancient vampires with courage that belied her mortality. But the question of her mortality itself loomed like a shadow over their relationship. They did not speak of it directly for nearly a year, until one evening when Jade found Lucien in his study, staring at a painting from the 1600s. "That's you, isn't it?" she asked, studying the portrait of a young man with dark hair and tanned skin, so different from the pale creature he had become. "Yes, Painted a few months before I was turned. I was handsome once, in a very human way. You're handsome now, just in a more supernatural, intimidating way." She settled beside him. "How old was the painter when you sat for this?" "She died decades ago. Everyone in this painting, everyone I knew in that village, all gone for centuries." His voice held a weariness that spoke to his true age. "That is the reality of immortality, Jade. You watch the world change, watch everyone you care for age and die, and you remain. Frozen. Unchanging. Is this about us? About the fact that I'm aging and you're not? You will be 30 in 7 years, 40 in 17. In 50 years, you will be elderly, and I will look exactly as I do now. Eventually, that gap becomes insurmountable." Jade was quiet for a long moment. "There's a solution to that. You've told me about the turning process." "No." The word was sharp, immediate. "I will not turn you." "Why not?" "You've said it's not against vampire law if there's consent. I'm an adult making an informed choice." "You are 24 years old, Jade. You have barely begun your life. I will not rob you of your humanity, of growing old, of all the experiences that come with a natural human lifespan. What if I don't want those things? What if I want forever with you instead?" Lucien stood, agitation clear in every line of his body. "You do not understand what you are asking. The transformation is agony. 3 days of feeling your body die and remake itself. And if you survive, because not everyone survives, you wake as something fundamentally different. You will need to drink blood to survive. You will never see sunlight again. You will watch anyone you care about who remains human age and die while you remain frozen at 24. I know all that. You've explained it. I'm still saying I want it. I want forever with you, Lucien. I want to learn everything you know, see the world through your eyes, be your true partner instead of this fragile thing you constantly worry about protecting. I love you as you are, human, fragile, gloriously mortal. I do not want to change that." "But I'm going to change regardless," Jade argued. "I'm going to age and die, and you're going to be alone again. Is that really what you want? To lose me in 50 years when we could have centuries together?" "What I want is irrelevant. I will not make this decision for you." "Then let me make it. Let me choose." They stared at each other, the argument hanging between them. Finally, Lucien's shoulders slumped in defeat. "If you still want this in 1 year, if you have thought about it carefully, considered all the ramifications, and still wish to be turned, I will do it. But you must be certain, Jade. There is no going back from this." 1 year, Jade agreed. "I can do that." The year passed in a strange blend of normalcy and supernatural danger. Jade managed Lucien's daytime affairs with increasing competence, negotiating deals that impressed even Nikolai. She and Lucien traveled together when he could, visiting his properties across the region, seeing the world from his perspective. They faced down 2 more challenges from vampires seeking to test Lucien's rule. Both ended decisively. Jade learned that the vampire world was never truly peaceful, that power required constant vigilance and occasional violence to maintain. But they also had moments of pure joy. Nights spent in the cathedral library, reading together in comfortable silence. Weekends at the safe house in the countryside, away from politics and responsibility. Making love in the vast bed Lucien had owned for 2 centuries, learning each other's bodies with increasing intimacy. Agatha Christie approved of their relationship, continuing to claim Lucien as her personal vampire. He, who had survived plague and war and centuries of vampire politics, found himself utterly dominated by a 12-pound cat. The year anniversary arrived on an autumn evening, leaves falling past the cathedral windows in shades of gold and red. Jade found Lucien in his study, knowing without asking that he had been marking the passage of time. "I still want it," she said without preamble. "I've thought about it every day for a year. I've considered the consequences, the pain, the permanence of it. And I still want forever with you." Lucien looked at her, his ancient eyes holding depths of emotion he rarely showed. "You are certain? Truly certain?" "I have never been more certain of anything in my life." He crossed to her, taking her hands in his. Then we will do this properly. Not here, but at the safe house where we will have complete privacy. I will need to feed heavily before we begin, to ensure I have the strength to stop before I drain you completely. The process is difficult to control. My instincts will scream at me to finish the kill. But you won't, because you love me and I trust you. That trust may be misplaced. I have turned only 3 people in my 4 centuries, and all were planned political alliances, not, he trailed off, not someone you love. I know. We'll figure it out together. They made arrangements, informing Nikolai of their plans in case something went wrong. The old vampire disapproved, but accepted Lucien's decision with grace. They stocked the safe house with blood supplies and medical equipment, preparing as thoroughly as possible for a process that was more art than science. The night they chose was clear and cold, winter settling over the forest. They sat together on the couch, Jade in Lucien's arms, watching the stars through the massive windows. "Last chance to change your mind," Lucien said softly. "I'm not changing my mind. I love you, and I want this." Jade tilted her head, exposing her throat. "I'm ready." Lucien kissed her first, tender and sweet, a goodbye to her humanity and a promise of what was to come. Then his fangs extended, and he bit down with practiced precision. The pain was immediate and intense, but Jade held still, trusting Lucien even as he drank deeply. She felt her heartbeat slowing, felt herself growing cold and weak. This was dying, she realized distantly. This was what it felt like to slip away. Just when she thought she could not bear another moment, Lucien pulled back. His wrist was bleeding, he had bitten himself, and he pressed it to her mouth. "Drink," he commanded. "Drink and live." Jade drank, the taste of his blood strange and metallic and somehow right. Power flooded through her, foreign and overwhelming. Her body began to convulse, the transformation starting. Lucien held her through it all, murmuring reassurances as she screamed, as her body died and remade itself. 3 days of agony, of feeling every cell change, of dying by inches only to be dragged back to a new kind of life. And then, on the evening of the 3rd day, Jade opened her eyes. The world had transformed. She could see every dust mote floating in the air, could hear Lucien's breathing and the rustle of leaves 100 yards away. She felt strong, powerful, gloriously alive in ways she had never imagined. Lucien leaned over her, relief and wonder clear in his expression. "Welcome back. How do you feel?" "Everything is so bright, so loud, so much." Jade sat up slowly, testing her new body. "Is it always like this?" "You will learn to control it, to filter the sensory input. It takes time and practice." He helped her stand, steadying her when she wobbled. "Careful. You are much stronger now. It is easy to break things until you adjust." Jade looked at her hands, paler than they had been, but still recognizably hers. She met Lucien's eyes and saw herself reflected there. Red irises gleaming with new power. "I'm like you now." "Yes, you are vampire. My love, my partner, my equal." He pulled her close, and she reveled in the feeling of his cool skin against hers, no longer a difference but a similarity. "How do you feel?" "Hungry," Jade admitted. "Really, really hungry." Lucien laughed, the sound freer than she had ever heard from him. "That is normal. Come, I will teach you to feed. We have eternity to perfect the skill." He taught her everything over the following weeks. How to feed without killing, how to move with vampire speed, how to control her new strength. Jade proved to be a quick study, adapting to her vampire nature with the same pragmatic determination she had brought to everything else. The vampire court was surprised but accepting of their king's decision to turn his human lover. Some whispered that love had made Lucien weak, but those whispers died when Jade demonstrated her competence, when she proved herself capable of standing at Lucien's side as true partner rather than protected pet. Nikolai, predictably, was both exasperated and pleased. "You have made her vampire. Now you must make her queen." "Is that an order from my advisor?" Lucien asked dryly. "It is common sense from someone who has watched vampire politics for 6 centuries. She is your consort in all but name. Make it official before someone tries to challenge her position." So Lucien did, in a ceremony attended by the vampire courts of 5 territories. He crowned Jade before the assembled witnesses, declaring her his queen and co-ruler of their territory. She stood beside him in a gown of deep crimson, her white hair changed by the transformation flowing down her back, and accepted the title with grace. They ruled together, 2 beings who had found each other through a wrong number and a whispered plea, who had chosen love despite every obstacle. Years passed, then decades. They traveled the world together, seeing wonders that Jade had only dreamed of as a human. They faced down challenges to their rule, political and physical, and emerged stronger each time. Agatha Christie lived out her natural life in pampered luxury, and when she passed, they mourned together. They adopted other cats over the years, a succession of felines who ruled their household with feline imperious grace. Jade never regretted her choice. On quiet nights, curled against Lucien in their vast bed, she sometimes thought about the scared young woman who had dialed a wrong number at 3 in the morning. That girl could never have imagined this life, this love, this eternal partnership. "What are you thinking?" Lucien asked, his fingers trailing through her white hair. "That I called the wrong number and found the right person. That's pretty lucky when you think about it." "Luck had nothing to do with it. You were brave enough to ask for help, and I was foolish enough to answer. Everything else was inevitable." "Inevitable?" "You are remarkable, Jade. Any version of me in any timeline would have fallen in love with you. It was simply a matter of fate arranging the proper circumstances." She kissed him, soft and sweet and full of promise. "I love you. Today, tomorrow, and for all the centuries to come. And I love you. My queen, my partner, my unexpected miracle." He pulled her closer, and they lay together in the darkness, 2 immortal beings who had found something rarer than power or wealth. They had found each other, and they had found forever. Outside their window, the city glittered with lights, a world full of humans rushing through their brief lives, never knowing that a vampire king and his queen watched over them. Lucien's territory prospered under their joint rule, safer and more stable than it had been in centuries. They had eternity stretching before them, full of possibility and adventure. But in that moment, wrapped in each other's arms, forever was exactly as long as they needed. The wrong number at 3 in the morning had led to everything: terror and transformation, love and immortality, a partnership that would endure as long as the night itself, and neither of them would change a single moment of it.